In this video, we're going to take a look at the greatest common factor and factoring algebraic expressions. So they kind of go together in that as we factor or pull out things, we are pulling out, in essence, the greatest common factor. So let's go ahead and take a look at our first example here. And we see that we have 3x plus 6. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take 3x and we're going to break it down into its prime factorization, which in this case is just 3 times x. And when we look at 6, when we break 6 down, we get 2 times 3. So now what we need to do is look and say, okay, what is common between 3x, 3 times x, and 2 times 3? Well, it's 3. And so we take the 3, and then we put parentheses, and we say, okay, what is left in the first term? And that's an x. Since we're adding, then we add, and then we say what's left in the second, which is 2. Now we could take, and to check this, we could expand this back out and say, okay, 3 times x is 3x plus 3 times 2, which is 6. So if we get the same thing as we started with, then we know that we have factored this properly. Okay, let's take a look at B. So let's take 35. We'll break it down into its parts, 7 times 5. And we'll take 49x, break it down into its parts. Let's just say 7 times 7, and then we can drop this straight down here, times x. So now again, we look, now that these are in their prime factorizations, we say, okay, here's a 7 that is common in both of them. And we look, and there's no other factors that are common. So we write down our common factor, greatest common factor, and then we say, okay, what's left in the first one? 5. We're subtracting, minus 7x. Another way you could look at this is say, okay, once you get your greatest common factor, 35 divided by 7 is 5, and 49x divided by 7 is 7x. And then we take the sign straight down. Again, to check, we could say 7 times 5 minus 7x, 35 minus 49x. And again, we get the same thing that we started with, and so we can, then we're finished with that. All right, let's take a look at these 2 more examples here. So we look, and 5 is really just saying, and sorry, a negative 5 is really just saying negative 1 times 5. And we could rewrite this and say negative 5 plus a negative 7y. So then our negative 7y is really just saying negative 1 times 7 times y. And really then we see that our only common factor is a negative 1. Now when we think about this, 1 is a common factor of every number, and in this case it's just negative 1 is a common factor in both of these. Okay, so we put that out front. What are we left with? 5. What are we left with here? A 7y. And again, you could look at it as saying negative 5 divided by negative 1 is a positive 5, and then negative 7y divided by negative 1 is a positive 7y. And to check it, you can say negative 1 times 5 plus 7y, and distribute that back through, and you get a negative 5 plus a negative 7y. Adding a negative is the same as subtracting, so if we wanted to get all the way back to our original, then we could do that. All right, now in this last example, we see that we have 3 terms. So now we need to break this down by saying, okay, 24 breaks down into 8 and 3, which then breaks down into 4 and 2, which then breaks down into 2 and 2. So really this is 2 times 2 times 2 times 3. 18 breaks down into 6 and 3, and then 6 breaks down into 2 and 3. So you have 2 times 3 times 3. And I'm not going to worry about the variables right now. Well, I guess I could put them on there. Times x. And then 36y is 6 and 6, which is 2 and 3, which is then 2 and 3, which is 2 times 3 times 2 times 3 times y. Just tack that y on the end. Now we're looking for common factors. So this one has a 2, this one has a 2, and this one has a 2. And then we look and we say, okay, this one doesn't have any more 2's, so we can't use those, but it looks like they all have a 3, so we're able to take that. So our greatest common factor is 2 times 3, because we have a 2 here and a 3 here. So our greatest common factor is 6. So now we could come up here and we could either look at what's left in each of these, or we could just say, okay, now that we have our greatest common factor, what's 24 divided by 6? Well, it's 4. Again, we could confirm that by saying 2 times 2 is 4. Okay, we're subtracting. 18x divided by 6 is 3x. Again, we could confirm that here. And then when we look at 36y divided by 6, 36 divided by 6 is 6, and y. And again, confirming 2 times 3 is 6, and we have a y. So we have broken this up and factored out our greatest common factor. Hopefully this was a helpful video for you. If you have any questions, you can bring them to class or post them down below in the comments section. Thanks for watching.